As My Heart Gives Out by Kira 18 on AO3. Chapter 4. That's okay too. When he opens his heavy eyes, he finds the world had shifted. No longer was it bathed in white. Instead, the walls around him were adorned with a dull gray. The room is airily bare. Faintly, he hears the hum of machinery and a rhythmic beeping echoing throughout the place. A sharp, raw sound that cuts through the silence. A pale figure lies prone on a bed, the sole object residing within the room, just barely rising and falling in tandem with the beeping sounds. Some sort of hazy mist surrounds him. If he squints, he thinks he could make out the colors within it, swirls of purple and black and some yellow. It's only then that the realization dawns on him. The startling fact that he was, in fact, staring down at himself. Although all he could see is his comatose, broken body, his ears pick up on other things. Soft whispers, voicing with each other. Closing his eyes, he tries to focus on the sounds. His heart rate stutters as he hears soft whimpering. Were they crying? His hands feel warm, and he thinks that maybe someone was actually sitting there right beside him, holding onto his hand. The ghostly sensation almost makes his eyes water. His feet move to subconsciously get closer, but the moment he does so, an invisible force halts him in his tracks. A glass barrier appears to shine to life right before his eyes, separating him from the rest of the world. His hand rises to push against it, but the invisible wall remains firmly in place. What is this? He says aloud, without much thought, mind eerily focused on trying to get to the people on the other side, wanting nothing more than to comfort them. Let me through! He shouts in frustration, fists banging against the barrier. Why can't I get out? Why can't you? A soft, sly voice startles him, making him whirl around to face the newcomer. His breath hitches as he looks at the boy in front of him. A dark, midnight black bandana is tied around his eyes, covering the upper half of his face. A green hood is pulled up over his hair, masking his identity from the world. Or, at least it would, if he wasn't so familiar with it. What's happening? How are you? You? The boy finishes, amusement evident in his tone, a knowing smirk forming on his features. Shouldn't I be asking you that? He continues, stepping towards him, walking leisurely, and with a confidence Izuku knows all too well. After all, it's your fault we're stuck here, he says, matter-of-factly. My fault? Yup. Popping the P as he joins his arm behind his back. I mean, don't you want to go back? There's still people who need us. The walls behind them shift, and a crowd roars to life within it, like the ripples of a rumbling lake. People are gathered and are shouting encouragements, standing right outside of the hospital. Posters proclaiming their love and appreciation for Shadow are held in their hands. Of course I want to go back, he stutters out, words coming out weaker than he intended. But there's so many other, better heroes, he says, like it's an indefeatable fact. They don't need us. With a wave of his hand, the scene evaporates back into wisps of smoke. What about them? It takes him a moment to recognize the people he's seeing, having never actually seen what they looked like beforehand. It makes his heart constrict in his chest as he sees them for the first time. The picture they make is not, however, what he wanted his image of them to be like. His childhood friend looks so much older, so grown, yet so wrong. Bakugo is huddled on a chair, gaze vacant, almost catatonic. No trace of his confident, fiercey self is to be found in his figure. Kirishima sits next to him, his spiky silhouette finally making sense to Izuku's mind. The red of his hair would have brought him intense joy, if not for the matching red around his crimson eyes. He sees them all, Midoriya crying, Ida silently fuming next to a solemn Yaoyorozu. They'll forget. They'll move on, he says, trying to remain his composure, even as his entire body screams for him to run towards them. Tell them that everything was gonna be okay. Are you sure about that? The world shifts again, and this time, he can't hold himself back. Tears slip down his face as the scene morphs, and he sees Shinsou and Aizawa for the first time. Shinsou is even more beautiful than he imagined him to be. His hair is a brilliant shade of lilac that reminds him of Whisper of Flowers, a great contrast to the dull white walls around him. His eyes hold so much heavy emotion within them. Seeing them, however, makes his entire being hurt. Raw sadness emanates from the teen's posture, eyes distant and blank, almost empty as he stares at the wall ahead, silent tears slipping down his face. He looks exhausted, sitting there, hunched in on himself, as broken as the boy lying on the bed next to him. Aizawa, on the other hand, is in no better shape. In fact, Izuku has never seen the man look so defeated before. Stop. He utters the words. He utters the words in a soft, cracked voice, turning away from the people in front of him. Please. Like fixtures of a broken glass. He utters the words in a soft, cracked voice, turning away from the people in front of him. Please. Like fixtures of a wine glass breaking with the pressure, he feels his walls crack and shudder. Everything suddenly feels too loud, too overwhelming. Huh. Just like that, they're back in the gray room. Do you really want to die that badly? He asks the question so bluntly it leaves Izuku speechless. Of course not! He shouts, almost instinctively. Then what's holding you back? His shoulders sag as he exhales heavily, eyes looking back to the figure lying on the bed. I'm just wondering what the point is. What do you mean? Shadow asks patiently, voice softer than it had been before. It makes him feel vulnerable. I mean. And now, his voice was rising, the anger he'd been suppressing finally reaching its tipping point. What's the point of going back if I'm gonna die anyways? He shouts. How much time do I have left, huh? 6? Maybe 7 months? We can't keep doing this to them. He cries out, almost desperately. What? Doing what exactly? He replies, just as fiercely, a humorless laugh escaping his twisted lips. Surviving? The question seems to deflate something within him. His entire body slumped in defeat, too exhausted to muster any more anger. Aren't you tired of fighting? He asks, feeling as though the question itself would break him in its feeble, almost fragile state. So, what does it matter? The shade crossed his arm. Then, looking almost slug, plus ultra, am I right? At least that's what we promised ourselves. How do you do this? Izuku asked, a breathless huff escaping his lips as he released his clenched fists, only now noticing the pressure of his nails had been putting on his palm. How do you hold on to so much hope? You already know how, silly. Shadow laughs, the sound breathless, entirely carefree. I'm you, remember? The voice of his mother seems to reverberate through the space. Then, Shinsou's voice follows suit a moment later, making his heart swell to something he thought he'd lost. Exhaling shakily, he lets a delicate smile etch itself onto his face. I'm gonna miss the light, you know. Yeah, me too. In his quiet response, are you going to come back with me? Huh? Of course. Although, I was thinking of taking a nice, long break. He draws as he lifts his arm to hold the back of his head, a knowing smile on his face. Maybe give up with the hood for a while? We're not exactly in the best physical shape, are we? I guess not. He huffs. His grin holds a sad tilt to it. Well, don't look so glummy about it. It's okay. The room around them shifts into smoke, the haze starting to envelop everything in its vicinity. I'll see you on the other side, Izuku calls, his voice sounding distant to his own ears as the world disappears right before his eyes. turning to a painfully familiar darkness. You won't, but that's okay too. The shade whispered, voice nothing more but a wisp in the wind. Okay, that was a cryptic chapter. So I want to pull out my 2 cents here. Is this Izuku talking to his powers? Because at first I thought, oh, he's talking to his unconscious. And unconsciously he's trying to, regain a resemblance of the fight he once had, of wanting to live and stuff like that, because obviously he lost that when, he found out he was going to die at the age of 10. But is this him talking to, not necessarily, because the lines of, are you going to be there? And it's like, no, I think we're going to stay for a while, right? Like rest for a while. Is this his powers taking a rest? In the sense that when Izuku comes back, he won't have his heightened senses. Or his weird sight ability thing, right? Is this his powers talking to him? Are they sentient in a way? Which, like, at first I'd be like, no, they can't be sentient, right? But at the same time, it was chemicals mixed with a quirk. This could very well be a sentient thing, right? I don't know how not Deadpool, hold up, sorry. I saw Deadpool 3's poster up on, what's it called? The movie theater when I went to go watch a movie for my birthday. My bad. Not Deadpool, Daredevil. I always get those two confused because of the double D's. No, wait, Deadpool doesn't have a double D. Deadpool has a D and a P. Sorry, I'm dyslexic. Because of, just, I don't know. I just get them confused in my mind sometimes, but, Daredevil, I don't know how his powers work, so I don't know if me thinking that they're sentient or this is somehow his unconscious talking to him. So if it's not his actual powers talking to him, it's his unconscious talking to him and being like, hey, look at this, but something tells me that it's his power. Because ain't no way he's able to see, like, yeah, no, never mind, this is definitely his power. Yeah, this is definitely his power talking to him in the form of himself, and it's kind of sentient and kind of telling him, like, hey, that cryptic last one, though, the whole, you won't, but that's okay too, right? Either the other side being when he dies, or the other side in the sense of, like, when he comes back from the coma, right? You won't, but that's okay too. Has Izuku lost his powers indefinitely? Like, they might not come back? Dare I to say he won't have the chemicals in his body at all? No, that's too much of wistful thinking. That's too much of wistful thinking. We can't let hope envelop us, okay? As nice as it is, it's gonna be soul-crushing later down the road. But yeah, that's all I have to say. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.